from Steelers Depot making his debut. Right beside him, Mr. Gar Mercury, who thought he had the Darqueze Dennard. He was 100% confident as to the Steelers were taking, but he was wrong, which he usually is on this podcast. Beside him is our Steelers beat writer, Jeff Sneddon, making his debut. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And beside him is Mr. John Penline, who put on a hat because he looked like Ringo Starr this morning. So, gentlemen, welcome. And you guys ready to talk some sports and eat some sausage over there, John?
Eggs.
All right, and first and foremost, like we do every week, we're going to go over our player of the week. And I'm just going to say it's for all the mothers out there. Happy Mother's Day to everybody. You guys deserve it. So I know mine's a great one. So we're going to give it to them. And as far as actual athletes go, let's go Aaron Donald, the local product getting drafted by the St. Louis Rams. Very well deserved, and he worked hard for it, and he just made the Rams probably one of the best defensive units and defensive lines in all the league. But we're definitely going to go over the Steelers, but we're going to push that off a little bit. We're going to get right into some Pittsburgh Penguins talk, since they want to steal the Pirates' limelight tonight, as they were both in prime time, with a Game 6 in Madison Square Garden after they lost 5-1 in Game 5. John, I know you covered that game for us. Was that one of the games that the Penguins were just bad, or the Rangers actually finally stepped up and wanted to?
Oh, you got kind of cut off there for a second. I hope I'm not the only one, or else I'm going to be in trouble. But yeah, I mean the Rangers, they surprised me a lot. I mean, I thought that for sure they would pack it in. I don't know if St. Louis' mother passing away gave them the motivation to come out for Game 5 or not. It appears to be that way, but I mean the Penguins just kind of sleepwalked through that entire game, and it's really nothing new with this team. I mean, they've done it before. They typically do it in Game 5 whenever they're about to eliminate an opponent. I mean, we thought that they would just roll right through the Islanders last year, and they ended up losing. So I mean, they win a lot of their series on the road. They win a lot of series in Game 6. I wouldn't be surprised if they got down 2-0, 3-0 in this game and then came back and won it just like they did against Ottawa, 4 or 5 years ago. But they have to win this one. I mean, I know there's Game 7 and it's at home, but we all know their history there, and you have to assume that they would prefer to end this tonight and at the very least get a little bit of rest before playing against a team like Boston or Montreal.
Is your prediction that they wrap it up tonight, or do you think the Rangers step up one more time and make things very interesting here in Yingerville?
I don't know. Everything points towards them, towards the Penguins wrapping this up, but I also have a feeling in my gut that this is going to go 7 and it's going to get really ugly. So, it's so tough to tell, especially in playoff hockey is just, it's impossible to predict, but on paper the Penguins should wrap this one up tonight.
All right, and Gar, I'm sure you were tuned into the game also on Friday. What did you take away from it?
Well, what I took away from it is that this team, we've talked a lot about this team not having the killer instincts or the heart, leadership, whatever you want to call it. I saw a team that wasn't ready to go. Now, you can talk about the Rangers emotionally being ready to go and kind of circling the wagons, and that's great. I mean, I get that, but you have an opportunity to close the team out, and you come out and you play like that. I think the Rangers had, 18, 19 shots in the first period. I mean, they just really seemed to be playing in about third gear. It was very, very disappointing. I have the Penguins winning in 6, but I'm kind of going along with John here as far as that whole gut feeling is concerned. Just kind of have that hollow feeling that Penguins are going to probably struggle tonight. They've got Lundqvist in goal, obviously, over it with the Rangers, and that always makes you a little bit nervous. I could definitely see this going back to Pittsburgh, and we all know how poorly the Penguins have played at Console when they've had opportunities to close games out. I think they're 1-7 all time. It's definitely very, very concerning. The other thing is, it's kind of beating a dead horse, but Sidney Crosby needs to have that big game. I think it's time for him to step up and have the kind of games that Evgeny Malkin's been having pretty regularly. So he was really the only guy on the ice that seemed to show up. So hopefully we're going to see a different team tonight.
Now, Alex and Jeff, I know you guys have been so caught up in draft coverage. Alex has been putting out those scouting reports left and right. Jeff's was going through the past 20 years, biggest bust, the best value picks. But you guys tune into the series at all?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been watching. I guess the thing I'll just say about Game 5, everyone expected the Rangers to lay down and give up, but why would they? I mean, it's a team that you fought all year long to get to this point. Why would you lay down when everything's on the line? So I'm not surprised that they came out. I mean, I'm surprised they dominated the way they did, but I didn't expect the Rangers to ever just lay down and just give the Penguins the game in the series. It's the playoffs, and you have everything on the line. So that was a little surprising that people thought that was going to happen. But the way that they blew out the Penguins was surprising. And then Lundqvist in net, when he's hot, which he's been, he's real tough to stop.
And Jeff, what kind of adjustments would you like to see the Penguins make tonight?
You know what? The one thing about the Rangers is overall they're not that great of a home team. I think the Penguins need to win this game, end this series, simply because, like you guys said, they're not really good in home game sevens. So it's just one of those things that you want them to end it tonight. Get out of here on a good note and get on to the next series. It seems like if this drags on any longer, it's going to turn into a real mess.
Now, I will say from a selfish perspective, I really hope it goes 7 games because whenever I'm driving on Tuesday out to Illinois and I get to the hotel, I need something to watch. So I kind of hope that the Penguins make it last till then just for my own selfish reasons. But one thing I read that I found kind of interesting, people mentioned that at the end of the season, the Penguins should buy out Rob Scuderi because he's just been horrible. Is that a realistic possibility, or somebody compared him to I'm trying to think of his first name, John, help me out, McCulloch from the Coyotes when he came over.
Oh, Zbynek?
Yeah, Zbynek McCulloch. They said, it was kind of the same signing, defensive-minded defenseman who really didn't get the job done, but he can't even skate as well as McCulloch could. Do you think it's a possibility at the end of the season they could just kind of cut ties with Scuderi?
Well, I mean, it's a completely different situation with McCulloch because he's still pretty young, and they actually were able to trade him, and they didn't get much for him, but they were able to free up some cap space. I don't know about the buyout because I don't know how much cap space that would tie up for future seasons, but I don't think they can go in with, and expect Rob Scuderi to play all 3 years of his contract here. I mean, he's just too slow. He's washed up, really, and he's been awful. I mean, he's just been, he's easily been, the least effective defenseman that they've had in the playoffs so far. And when they brought back Orpik for Game 4, I was mad they brought back Orpik, but I was even more mad that they sat Bortuzzo and not Scuderi, because Scuderi's the one that needed to sit down, not Bortuzzo. And now you don't really have that problem because Orpik's hurt, but just overall, I mean, there's no real use for Rob Scuderi if he's not fast enough to keep up with the rest of the players in the playoffs, and so far he's proven that he's not. So I can't foresee them keeping him around, but I don't know necessarily if they would be willing to eat that much salary over the next 2 years. So it's a really difficult situation for him.
Well, what do you do about Game 6, potential Game 7, and the next series going forward with guys like Orpik and Scuderi who have both just been horrible? Do you play them? Do you bench both? Do you try to mix things up a little bit?
I don't think Orpik's going to play. I think he's hurt. I think he's I think he's done. I think we've seen his last game in a Penguins uniform. Scuderi, again, I don't know who you're going to put. I mean, maybe Simone Dupre, but they don't trust Simone Dupre, and they never put him in enough games during the regular season to kind of get him into a groove. And even when he did get the opportunity to play, he didn't really show a lot of effort to begin with. So I think you have to roll with Scuderi. The only change I would make is I would take Chris Letang off the top power play. I don't know why he ended up back on the top power play, because they were scoring enough goals with the man advantage with Matt Niskanen at the point. Matt Niskanen has a better shot. I think it's been proven. He hits the net, and he shoots it a little bit harder, in my opinion. And I think a lot of teams know that if Chris Letang's at the point, they're going to give him an opportunity. They're going to try to take away all the other passing lanes because they know that he's going to try to pass up shots, and he does. And it's I mean, everybody talks about how bad, the Rangers' power play has been, and it has been really terrible, but how many power play goals have the Penguins scored? I mean, they've had a ton of power play chances as well, and I just think that if you're going to roll with your best 5 guys, you're going to roll with Malkin, Crosby, Neal, Kunitz, and Niskanen. And if you want to take out that one guy, if you want to take out Neal, that's fine. Put in Paul Martin. Don't put in Chris Letang. He's not a power play quarterback.
I agree. Although he's been playing a better overall game the past 3 or 4 games there for the Penguins. But I'm 100% with you on their keeping Niskanen on the top power play. Now, guys, who you guys looking forward to seeing next round if they can get through the Rangers? You guys want to see the Habs, or do you want to see the Boston Bruins? Kazora?
I guess Boston, just, again, I guess for a little selfish reasons. I think it'd just be a better series to go against the top team. But I'm not sure if we're going to even get there. I think the Rangers are going to take Game 6 tonight, and then Game 7 is going to be unpredictable. But I'll take Boston.
All right, and Gar.
I don't think there's any question you want to see Montreal, just from a matchup standpoint. I think that's pretty obvious. I give the Penguins almost no chance against Boston. I hate to be so negative. I'm taking after Penline a little bit here, but I just don't see any way that the Penguins can match up in a 7-game series against a team like Boston, particularly when it just seems like the Penguins turn it on and off way too much. Boston's always turning it on, so that's what I would expect to see. And I kind of agree. Boy, if they go to Game 7 against the Rangers, I don't think there's, 1 or 2 goalies in NHL history that have a better history in Game 7 than Henrik Lundqvist. That's not what you're looking for, and the Penguins are in big trouble if they allow that to happen.
All right, sorry there. I had
it's a nice photo, though.
a dog. I was trying to keep my mother off camera. So, all right, and Jeff, is there? Well, I mean, we all know the matchup will probably be better with the Canadians, but when it comes down to it, would you rather see them play them, or as far as the enjoyment standpoint and the competition, go with the Bruins?
From a Pittsburgh standpoint, obviously, I'd rather see the Habs. I got to agree with Gar. I think Boston's just too strong, and they're not the team I want to see the Penguins have to scratch out in the 7-game series with right now. I think Montreal's a better matchup, and although it's hard to ever pass up a Pittsburgh-Boston sports playoff matchup. They're just always just incredible. But as somebody that wants to see the Penguins do well, I'd rather see them play the Habs.
John, assuming you feel the same way?
No, I'd rather see them play Boston, to be honest. I think Boston's a slower team. I think they're a better team. They play better team defense. But if there's one thing that really kills the Penguins, it's a team that's faster than them. We've seen that. We saw that last year. I mean, the Islanders had a terrible goalie, which really helped the Penguins, but they were the faster team. And it was no surprise midway through the series that it was such a close series. I mean, even when they played Toronto last year, they struggled because Toronto was just a much faster team. When I look at Montreal, I see a team that's extremely fast. And with Boston, they're a big team. They play very strong defensively, but at the same time, I think that either way, I mean, the Penguins are either going to have to learn their lesson and try to not slow down and out-hit the Bruins and out-defense them and just attack them, or they're going to lose anyway because, I don't know. It's just, to me, when you look at the whole league, you have the Western Conference, which is a lot stronger than the Eastern Conference. If you go within the Eastern Conference, the Atlantic Division is a lot stronger than the Metropolitan Division. So I think, regardless of whether of each, of who they would play in the next round, they're going to have a really tough time winning that series. I would rather play against a team that's a little bit slower, that plays more into that plotting style, than play against a team that's faster and will surely outrun guys or outskate guys like Orpik or Bortuzzo or Scuderi.
And for me, I'm all about entertainment, as you guys know. I wanted the Flyers to take on the Penguins instead of the Rangers. I love the storylines, the rivalries, everything like that. And again, I want them to play the Canadiens just because I love PK Subban. He's one of my favorite hockey players to watch. He's very entertaining, and he always has the spotlight on him. So I'd love to see that matchup take place. But I guess we will find out soon, Monday night or Tuesday night at the very latest. But, let's get into some Pittsburgh Pirates talk here before we get into the Steelers. The Pirates have been hot as of late. Won 6 out of their past 8, guaranteed to win their third straight series as they beat the Cardinals last night with that huge inning in such a weird game. I don't know if you guys watched it or not, but you had Andrew McCutchen not starting because of an injury that they didn't post the lineups until after the media left the room. Starling Marte injured his back, so that meant you guys that the Pirates had the Gold Glove caliber outfield of Josh Harrison, Jose Tabata, and Gabby Sanchez in right field. It was horrible, and he got lucky that no balls got hit his way. But what do you guys make of the Pirates this past week? Are they turning things around a little bit? Are they righting the ship, so to speak? Or is it just kind of a hot streak that any team will go through throughout the year?
Well, it's obviously a step in the right direction. And, to start the year 10-18, I think it was. And really it's just about baby steps and not getting too up or too down about your season. And just start taking it series by series and winning each one. And so far we have. It had right field last night. And then Jordy Mercer replaced Sanchez in right field, I believe, right? So, and that was his first career appearance in right field. So I don't know what happened last night. That's like Plan D. But you got the win, and it was ugly. And you had to work your way out of trouble, and you had to mount that comeback after being down 3-0. But to do that against a team like St. Louis and to win that series, that's pretty cool. It'd be great to get a win tonight on national TV. But so it's a step in the right direction. And from where we were feeling a week ago when everyone thought the sky was falling, we've calmed down a little bit, I hope.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in there and just say, without a doubt, when you look at what the Pirates have been able to do, they're doing it against teams that, are pretty good. I mean, they just swept the San Francisco Giants, who have been among the top teams in the National League early. Add to the fact that, with a win tonight, they'll have swept the Cardinals, and they've had some good play against the Cardinals this year. And they're going to be going to the House of Horrors out in Miller Park after tonight. All of a sudden, they've got an opportunity to really close the gap. I think it's 6.5 games now. If they were able to win 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee, all of a sudden you've kind of put yourself back in position to have a little bit of success as you head into mid-May. Add one more point. The Pirates have been able to do all this with Frankie Lariano and Charlie Morton, guys that were expected to be their number 2 and 3 starters, still not winning a game, and it's May 11th. So that's really something when you really think about it. I mean, the fact that the Pirates are still within striking distance of 6.5 games is within striking distance at this point in the year. That's gives you at least a little bit of hope. Hopefully Marte and Kutch are going to be back in the lineup before too long, but that's definitely a good sign.
Yeah. Can I just jump in here? Is that how this works?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. To put it in perspective for the Pirates, they started out the season 6-2. They started out hot. The last 2 weeks here they've played hot. It's the in-between 3 weeks where they just played terrible baseball. Every team is going to go through this at some point over the course of a 162-game season. I think they got their kinks out of the system early. We're starting to see Milwaukee. I mean, Milwaukee obviously wasn't going to win 120 games. So they're 3-7 over their last 10. Looks like they're going to lose Aramis Ramirez for at minimum 3 weeks. This is the time right now when the Pirates are starting to make their move. 6.5 games out, 4 games under 500. Not bad when you consider that every team in this division, with the exception of the Brewers, is under 500. So I think they're in good shape, and I think winning this series right now and sweeping St. Louis tonight would just be another shot in the arm.
And the way I look at it, even though they are under 500, all the teams like you said, that would make me nervous as a Pirates fan too, because the Reds and the Cardinals are still performing better than the Pirates. even though Alan Craig isn't looking like the player he was last year. Matt Carpenter is not hitting the doubles like he usually does. Can't figure anything out at second base there for the Cardinals. They haven't caught up Oscar Taveras yet, which they will. It's Super 2 time. And then the Reds, they get Chapman back. So, I mean, I think all three of those teams are going to improve with the Brewers regressing a little bit, but I just don't know if the Pirates can make up enough ground. I know it's only May 11th, guys. I realize that, but I still have the Cardinals finishing first and the Brewers finishing second. I have them leapfrogging the Reds even. So, I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting. Like you said, Alex, it's definitely a step in the right direction, and every team goes through these slumps, and you're going to continue to see the Pirates go 6-2 and then go 2-6 and then 6-2 again. That's just how baseball works.
And I think Gar made the good point of this Milwaukee series is going to be a great litmus test for how well the Pirates really are playing. Because Milwaukee, they've always had our number. It's been tough against them this year. So that's a series I'm excited about to see how they come out and if they can snag a couple from Milwaukee and kind of get that monkey off their back.
Yeah, they're catching Milwaukee at a good time too. They're definitely not full strength. This is the time right now when they need to set their foot down on this Brewers team. Last year, it seemed like they got the monkey off their back a little bit. Thus far in 2014, the Brewers have just straight up bullied the Pirates again.
Wait a minute.
How concerned are you guys about the injuries to Starling Marte and Andrew McCutchen? Since we don't really have much of an update, except Marte was wincing when he went to go put on his socks after the game. And McCutchen said he hopes to play, but athlete talk. You can't really trust him at all. John, how concerned are you about the injuries there?
I'm not really concerned. I mean, I think I wouldn't be surprised if McCutchen played tonight. And I mean, a sore back. I mean, at the very worst, it's 15 days on the DL. That's not a big deal. I mean, we probably backdated a couple days. I don't know, but. Yeah, I'm not really concerned. I find it funny that you said that Oscar Taveras isn't going to come up until the Super 2 status is over. I thought only cheap-ass Bob Nutting did stuff like that. I had no idea that the $150 million Cardinals did the same thing. It's kind of interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, to answer your question from earlier as well, I'm typically a lot more optimistic about this team, but I have to see a little bit more. I mean, the Cardinals just aren't playing very well right now. And I've watched a lot of the Blue Jays this year because I've had one on my team who's killing you this week, Mike. But their pitching is terrible too. So it's really there's really no surprise that that the Pirates are able to put up a ton of runs. The Giants series was definitely an eye opener, and even though Morton doesn't have a win, he still battled right to the very end with Tim Hudson. So. We have to see more out of Morton. I think we need to see a lot more out of Garrett Cole. If the pitching can at least improve a little bit, then I'll start to believe. But this upcoming week at Milwaukee, then at Yankee Stadium, that's just, borderline unforgiving. So talk to me in a week. If they take a series in Milwaukee and they maybe go 1-2, or maybe take the series in New York, then maybe I'll think that they've turned the corner. But right now, I think this is just one of those weeks where they've played really well.
I know.
And John, go ahead.
I was going to make just a quick point. I know the starting pitching has just been okay at best, maybe not even that, but just credit to the bullpen. I mean, last night you see Tony Watson gets a bunch of ground ball outs, and that bullpen goes through. I don't think they allowed a run last night, right?
Yeah, no, they didn't.
So I thought they've done well. I thought Melancon's done a nice job in the closer role. And that could be interesting, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but if it really comes back, I imagine he's going to be reinserted as the closer, but if he struggles some more, maybe the discussion comes up if Melancon should be the guy. But the bullpen has done a nice job for how these starters in some games have struggled.
Well, they've been spotty because you forget the first game against the Giants, they blew an 8-run lead, and part of that was luck. But at the end of the day, the bullpen does have to come in and kind of stop that. I mean, they did a great job last night, and they've done a pretty good job the last couple of games, but they've been pretty spotty for most of the season. I wouldn't mind seeing them get another bullpen arm, or maybe bringing up a guy that could maybe be in their bullpen long term from AAA. But you also have to consider Wandy Rodriguez is going to start in Milwaukee this week instead of Brian Compton, who's been great so far this season. So it's one of those deals where it's like, I've defended front office, as Gar knows. I've defended the front office to hell and back for the most part, but when I see Wandy Rodriguez starting in Miller Park and not a guy like Compton who's been great this season, you have to kind of wonder, like, is the $13 million salary what's important, or is it trying to get the best 5 guys out there to help you win a game?
Well, they're not going to just sit Wandy Rodriguez down. I mean, the guy's making the most money on their staff. He's got to get out there and at least give them innings. Even if he's not, a 3.5 ERA, 1.1 WHIP guy like he has been throughout the course of his career, you got to give him he's got to give him 200 innings. If Wandy Rodriguez doesn't at least get around the 185, 190 inning mark this year, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. And I got to agree too. Compton, I think, has earned a spot at the very least temporarily on the staff. I do think they're kind of holding him sort of as an ace up the sleeve. Looks like they made a transaction today. They brought outfielder Jeff Decker, Jeff spelled the wrong way with an A, up from AAA Indy. He's hitting a whopping 238 down there in the International League. Don't know why he came up instead of Lambo. Obviously, we've already we know why Polanco is not up, but Lambo's hitting 344. Maybe a temporary move. Maybe they do bring up another bullpen arm, or maybe Irwin gets brought back up later this week. But I don't think right now we can when you talk about the bullpen, one guy that I think is completely invaluable to this team right now is Jared Hughes. Jared Hughes has been one of those guys who never seems, over the last 2 years, hasn't been able to seem to stick. But every time he comes up, he gives them quality innings. He's intense. I just think he's a great addition to this bullpen.
I don't know, Jeff. I kind of disagree. I think the Pirates are in trouble if Wandy Rodriguez goes 150 to 200 innings, because I feel there's going to be some very poor 200 innings. I mean, when your fastball tops out at, 89 miles an hour, I know the money driving factor, $13 million, but can we all agree he's done? I mean, he got shelled in his AA rehab start. We all know that there's no coming back from where he's at, and yeah, money's going to be the driving factor, but I can't expect Wandy to stick much longer, because there's a point where you just say, yeah, I know the money's there, but we got to do what's best for the team, because if you're getting shelled each game, with the way the Pirates are and how competitive this is, you can't be giving those games away.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to throw 180 innings, then he must be making 180 starts, because he's not going to make it out of the first if he's giving up 7 runs in AA. I mean, I agree that when they gave him that money, they thought, you're going to be a guy who's going to eat 180 to 200 innings, and when they brought him over, it seemed like a good idea, but it's kind of like the thing with Rob Scuderi. I mean, the guy's old. He's not, it's one thing, and we've said this ad nauseum, but it's one thing if you throw 89, 88 miles an hour with control, but if you're throwing it belt high down the middle almost every single time, yeah, you're going to get crushed. So you almost have to hope that Wandy either throws 8 shutout innings against Milwaukee, or he just gets absolutely hammered to the point where they need to make a change and bring him out of the rotation.
Yeah, I didn't see Wandy.
Start against Milwaukee is going to be key. It's going to be a key start. I think this is going to be a real litmus test for Wandy Rodriguez moving forward. I think they're really going to look hard at this start. John, all three of you guys made some great points, so I won't hammer them. And I know, for instance, John, I don't think you're a big Vin Mazzaro guy, but he is pitching awfully well right now down in AAA. I mean, he could be a possible option for you just based on production. I don't know that I disagree with you, Penline, about his quality, but he is getting the job done down there. And I absolutely agree with everyone who brings up Brandon Compton. He's just doing a tremendous job. He has the look of a guy who can come in and immediately be their 4th or 5th starter and give them 5, 6 quality innings. I just don't understand it. You had some tweets, Penline, earlier in the week or last week, comparing, bring up a guy who's throwing 86 miles an hour over a guy who's consistently throwing 93 and throwing strikes. That makes a lot of sense. But, like each of you said, I mean, I guess it becomes more of a financial thing. When you made a $13.5 million commitment, it's tough to make the change in mid-May. But that start in Milwaukee, I really believe the Pirates are going to take a hard look at Wandy, and if he gets blown up the way he did just against Double A, excuse me, I think that we could be seeing goodbye to Wandy earlier than later.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't have him making more than pitching 50 innings this year. I just do not trust him. We got to get things moving here a little bit, guys. Two quick Pirates topics to cover before we get into Steelers talk, and that is the Pirates are playing Sunday Night Baseball, like you guys alluded to. After 18 years, they're making the first appearance at home against the Cardinals on PNC. You're going to have John Hamm there. You're going to have Rinku Singh there promoting their $1 Million Arm movie. If you guys, let's pretend for a second, if the recall button or last button on your controller did not work, you could only watch one. Couldn't go to the bar. Penguins or Pirates? Which one are you guys watching tonight?
Come on, it's the Penguins. I mean, I love baseball, but there's like 100 more games you could watch after this, and yeah, I mean, it has to be the Penguins. A playoff game or a regular season game in May. I mean, come on.
I was actually banging my head against the wall when I heard that the game was scheduled for 7 o'clock tonight because, I have a partial season ticket plan to the Pirates, and my dad is dead set on going to the game tonight, so I am actually going to be behind home plate watching the Pirates. So I'm kind of forced into making a decision, even though I probably, in my gut, would rather be watching the Rangers-Penguins playoff series.
Obviously it's a playoff game, and it's possibly a go-home playoff game for the Penguins. So if I had to sit and choose, I'm probably going to watch the Penguins, but ultimately I'm probably going to end up watching Game of Thrones.
I'll watch a rerun of the NFL draft. That's what I'll do.
All right, and I'm taking the baseball game. I'm sorry, I'm at my mom's and she has cable and I don't, so I finally get to watch an ESPN Sunday night game, so I'm going that way. And regardless, I'll catch flack for it, but I'll take a regular season baseball game over playoff hockey any day just because I love baseball. Do love hockey, but yeah. Now let's talk Francisco Liriano a little bit. Well, I'm just going to throw in there, John Penline 3 weeks ago, he's like, I told you guys Volquez is going to have a sub-4 ERA. I told you to have a sub-4 ERA, and right now I think he's sitting at like 4.36. So anyway, my little shot at John for the week is in. Now Liriano, Jeff, Alex, so far this year I've just said Liriano is going to be horrible. He's going to suffer major regression. He's the most inconsistent pitcher in the major leagues year to year. And so far this year, he's kind of showing it. He's 0-3. You can't really pay attention to wins. It's not fair to gauge a pitcher off of that. But
you're going to do it anyway. Go ahead.
No, I'm not. Not off of wins. His K per nine are down. His walks per nine are up. His home runs per nine are up. His ground ball percentage is down. His home run to fly ball is up. His ERA is up. His whip right now, I'm trying to find out where that number is right now. It is at 145 because he's at the bottom of the players' statistic because he's been so bad this year. Are you guys concerned about Frankie Liriano like I am, or do you guys think that he's going to turn it around?
I'm concerned. I'm concerned about him. I was concerned about him coming into the season. I just think what he did last year, obviously he wasn't going to be able to replicate that. You figured he'd regress a little bit. He hasn't pitched terribly. He hasn't embarrassed himself out there. But unfortunately, his walk rate is up. He just doesn't look comfortable. Maybe it's just me, but he doesn't. Last year, every time he took the mound, he just looked like he was in cruise control. This year, it seems like he's laboring a little bit. I'm hoping that maybe it was just the start of the season, and now he kind of gets into his groove. But I think ultimately, Frankie Liriano is more of a 4 ERA, 12-10 kind of guy. So hopefully he can get back to that.
And the major concern I have is his velocity is down on all of his pitches. His fastball, his slider, his changeup, everything is down. And he's he's throwing the changeup even more than he is. He's throwing the fastball and slider less this year. So anytime a pitcher drops in velocity, I have concerns. I know Ray Sears said it was the groin injury. He's turning the corner now. That's what coaches are supposed to say. Again, you can't trust what coaches say about players or what players say about themselves. Gabby Sanchez is the best shape of his life. All this kind of stuff. You hear it time and time again. So, Gar, Alex, Penline, do you guys have concerns about Frankie, or do you guys think he's going to even out a little bit here.
Yeah.
You make a great. Oh, I'm sorry, Alex. Go ahead. My bad.
Okay. I think, yeah, it's a little concerned. I mean, you have to be a tiny bit concerned, but again, there's that regression to the mean. And like Jeff had said, you're not going to get the numbers that he had last year, and then you're not going to get these numbers that he has now. Hopefully, he kind of evens himself out a little bit. I think he just needs that one dominant start to kind of just get him back, his mind in a good place. And then hopefully you can go from there and kind of build on that. So that's what I'm looking for, is that one dominant start. Is he going to be as good as he was last year? No, and not even really that close. But I think he evens himself out a little bit.
Mike, first thing I want to do is pat you on the back because I know you need that occasionally. You've been pretty accurate so far. The other thing is I was doing a little bit of reading this morning, and you brought up two statistics that I caught onto that I wanted to bring up. So good job. His ground ball percentage is way down, and his walks are way up, and those are two stats that are really concerning to me. I mean, he was a pitcher that had a lot more control, and the walks are really a big deal. I think he had, 4 the other night and 3 or 4 the night before, and it just seemed to get him in a lot of trouble. I think he got a couple guys on base with walks, and then that led to a home run, if I remember correctly. I mean, he's not finding that continuity, and whoever just said something about his body language, I couldn't agree more. He just does not seem to have I think Jeff just brought that point up. His body language just does not look the same as it did last year, and you don't want to read too much into that kind of stuff, but hopefully he finds a way to get it together, because right now 12 wins would be pretty impressive at the rate he's going.
All right,
let's see. His strikeout percentage is down by 2%. His ground out to air out ratio is actually higher than it was last year. In fact, it's among the highest that it's been since 2010 when he was with the Twins. I think we also kind of overlooked the fact that at the beginning of the season they were playing in parks like Cincinnati, Milwaukee, where if you can fly ball, it's basically over the fence. Not making excuses for him. I agree his velocity is down a bit, although I was thinking that the other day because I kept seeing 85, 85, 86, and I assumed that that's either his changeup or his slider. And then I thought, oh, maybe it's his fastball. And then he threw a fastball at 95 that got turned into a ground ball to second base. So I just think he's not throwing his fastball as much. I think he's relying on the changeup too much. And obviously, I think the biggest problem has to be the location. I mean, he's walking 3 or 4 guys a game, and if he can just kind of hone that in, I think he'll be fine. He's not going to pitch like he did last year. In fact, I never said, Mike Waterloo, that he was going to be that same exact pitcher that he was last year. I thought he would have regressed a little bit, but not to the point like you did, sir, where you said that he was going to be DFA'd by the end of the year.
I said he will not make the Pirates postseason roster if they made the playoffs, which they're not going to.
Well, I was going to say, at this point, right now, nobody's making the playoff roster because you have to be in the playoffs to be a part of that roster. But I think overall, I think he can be. I wouldn't be surprised if his ERA crept back below 4 by the end of the season. I think he'll be fine as long as he stays healthy. And and I do believe that if he had a nagging injury, I mean that's obviously going to affect you a little bit. So. I mean, if he's getting healed from that, I think he'll be back to where he was, kind of in the middle or towards the end of last season, where he was still good but not great.
All right, and the big thing for him, you mentioned him pitching on the road. He was horrible. He wasn't that great on the road last year. We saw the splits between the home and the away. He was great at home. So just kind of waiting for that Wandy Rodriguez to kind of show up, because I'm trying to see. So far he's made 1, 2, 3. 4 or 5 starts at home, and he's made 3 starts on the road in Milwaukee, in Cincinnati, in St. Louis. So definitely with Milwaukee and Cincinnati's stadium there, I definitely see what the inflation is stats. Now it's time to let Jeff Sned and Alex Kozora take over. This is their baby. This is their what they basically dedicated their past few months to, is just studying up on the NFL draft for the Steelers. Jeff did an excellent job for us. Very in-depth pieces, put together his mocks, and Alex, basically, out of anybody I know, he knows the prospects better than anybody. I don't know how he does it, but you guys did a great job over the past couple months. Now let's get into the picks that the Steelers made. They went Ryan. Well, actually, I'm probably going to butcher half of these names here, but that's all right. I'll let you guys correct me, step in there. Ryan Shazier, first round from Ohio State linebacker. Big fan of him. Stephon Tuitt from Notre Dame. Dre Archer, running back / wide receiver / special teamer from Kent State. Martavius Bryant, Clemson. Shaquille Richardson, Arizona. Cornerback. Wesley Johnson, offensive tackle from Vanderbilt. Jordan Zumwalt from UCLA, linebacker. He's the typical Steelers linebacker, I like to think. Daniel McCullers, defensive tackle from Tennessee, and Rob Blanchflower, tight end from Massachusetts. So I'm just going to open up the floor to you guys first, kind of break down what you saw, and then myself, Gar, and John will jump in when the time arises. So, Jeff, since you represent PSN first and foremost, I'll let you go ahead and start.
Overall, I really like the Steelers draft. I know they're going to catch some flack for some of the picks they made, specifically Dre Archer, and maybe some of their later picks. The Steelers have gotten into this bad habit of using some of these later picks as throwaway picks, guys that never make the roster and pretty much never play down. But starting off at the top, Ryan Shazier, I really like him as a speed rusher. I think he's going to immediately jump in at the typical where Lawrence Timmons has been playing for the majority of his career, the MAC linebacker spot. Obviously, as a rookie, he's not going to be able to jump in at the buck. It's just going to be too much for a rookie to handle. He's a guy that's going to rely mainly on his athletic ability. I do think he's going to be a fantastic designated pass rusher type player for the first year or two, and then he's going to settle in. And he's definitely got some maturity. It's going to take him a while. He really didn't have that long of a college career, so it's going to take him a little bit of time to adjust and adapt to the NFL. But he's going to be one of those guys that Joey Porter is going to be tied to for the pretty much the length of his coaching career. I like the pick. I know a lot of people are disappointed they didn't go with Denard, who felt like a rock in the first round. I think if Kyle Fuller would have been there, he'd have been a Steeler. But ultimately, they go back to their roots and grab the inside linebacker. Alex?
I didn't know a lot about Shazier whenever they drafted him, and I was okay with not taking a cornerback. I was against it. I didn't see it happening. Kevin Colbert's never taken a cornerback in the first round, only taken 2 in the second round. What you have to love is the athleticism. You talk about a guy at 237 that ran a 4.4 at his pro day, jumped 42 inches at the combine, and it shows up on tape. That explosion, that acceleration that he has is probably the best in his class. But the other part that people probably don't talk about a whole lot is how smart this guy is. Because you can be a guy that's a freak athlete that kind of plays out of control and just shoots gaps, hopes for the best. He's a guy that can read and diagnose the play and know when to put on that second gear and rally to the ball carrier. I love his flow, his chase down the ball from the backside. The guy's a monster, asked to do a lot, dropping the coverage a ton. There were times where he would be the only linebacker out there whenever Ohio State would go into their sub-package football. So he was asked to cover a lot of ground. A guy that's still young, like you said, Jeff. He's a true junior, but does have 28 career starts. And a guy that's going to grow exponentially. He seems a high-character guy. Coaches, Urban Meyer says he has a heart of gold. Big fan of this pick. I was really excited after I finished watching him. Seems like a great guy, and is going to allow you when you to not have to run dime all the time and only have 3 linebackers out there, and it kicks Troy from being in the box to back to safety where he belongs. I'm gonna let him do what he does in center field. So I love the Shazier pick.
And I also think, sorry to step on somebody there. I also think that Shazier being in there with his speed and his ability to go sideline to sideline, it's like you mentioned, Troy Polamalu. It's gonna make his life easier, but it's also gonna play right into what new free safety Mike Mitchell, his game, which is you stick him back there as that rover and just let him go out there and headhunt. And I really like where this defense is heading. And then, of course, we'll get into the second round pick, which, in my opinion, is the best pick the Steelers made in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers ran sub-package football 60% of the time last year. So now you bring in Shazier, and you're able to kind of stay in your base a little bit more, have a true nickel. We tried that with Terrence Garvin last year. That failed horribly. And then that puts less pressure on the cornerback depth, too. You're not testing it as much if you don't have to run dime every single time and have all 4 guys out there. So it's that domino effect. I think he has a great chance to be a Week 1 starter, even though I do like Vince Williams. But, yeah, he's a special player, a special athlete, and like Tomlin and Colbert said, you don't pass on those guys.
I think it was John Penline that put on Twitter, Shazier may be great or whatever, may shoot the gaps. Was Steve McClendon there at nose tackle? What's he really going to do? Penline, are you a fan of the pick, or would you have went a different way there?
Well, I'm a big fan. I mean, at first I was just like, seems like a reach given where all the mocks were. But then again, I mean, I'm not really an expert like these guys are. Like, I didn't do as much research. I just kind of followed the mocks on ESPN. But when I looked at the tapes, or when I looked at the highlights that they showed of him, and I saw, he had in his 40 time, and I know you hate 40 times, Mike, but when you see a guy who's 240 pounds and he can run, a 4.3, 4.4 40, that's still pretty athletic. And he's, other than, maybe the offensive lineman that they got late in the draft and the giant nose tackle they got, I thought with their first 4 picks, they basically said, we're just going to get big, fast, athletic guys. And that's certainly what they needed. I mean, they needed more speed on this team, period. And when you think about, teams are going to try to spread out the Steelers. They're going to try to throw on them. I mean, you've got Lawrence Timmons, who's fast enough to keep up with a lot of tight ends and some wide receivers. I mean, a guy like Shazier looks like he's going to be in that same mold. I mean, they just got a lot faster in the linebacker core, and I think that's extremely valuable for them. And it's no surprise that they passed on taking Denard. I mean, they were supposed to take Aaron Williams a couple years ago. They ended up taking Cameron Hayward. They just don't draft corners. I think they've drafted 2 or 3 since the 1980s or 1970s. So, it's no surprise, and I'm glad that they went with a linebacker, especially a guy who's that fast and that athletic.
Great points made all around. I'm going to jump in here for a second because I know a little about the draft too. Just a couple things. But I'll keep it up. A couple great points about the dime defense. They are going to be able to transition out of that dime defense that they were in way too much last year. Way too much. The other thing is, when you look at Shazier, he's a bigger Troy Polamalu. He's a guy that they're going to be able to put all over the field and use in a variety of ways. Jeff made a great point about our new safety. It's going to allow him to do a lot of different things and be more of a ball hawk, which he proved he could be in Carolina last year. And just from a visceral point of view, watching Ryan Shazier the last couple of years, because Ohio State's on all the time, he was the best player for Ohio State the last couple of years. I mean, he just flat out was. He was all over the field. He made plays all over the field every game you watch. High motor, not just athletic, a guy that's always seemed to be around the ball, can do a lot of different things on defense. And, everybody knows that I did think the Steelers should try to go for a cornerback, whether it was Denard or another player. But Shazier, the more I think about it, the more I sat back on it for 24 hours, the guy can play. And the Steelers tend to know what they're doing, particularly with first-round picks. So I think that it was a good pick, and he's a guy who's going to be able to make an impact early.
Well, one more point I'd like to make on Shazier. If you watch his tape, and I know, was it Mike? You said you're not big on 40 times.
Not at all. Nope.
I'm not huge on 40 times when it comes to skill position guys. I don't really care if a wide receiver runs a 4.37 instead of a 4.40. But when it comes to a linebacker and a guy who, if you watch his tape, everything he did the last few years is based off of his athletic ability. I mean, the guy essentially has no idea what he's doing. He's just doing it off of pure athletic ability. Once he gets into the Steelers system and he gets into this program and he learns how to actually play linebacker and actually become a guy who has a few counter moves and who can play off balance and can do the things that the good, successful NFL pass rushers do, the sky is the limit for him.
Yeah, I'm with you when it comes to 40 times. I hate them as skill positions, especially, but I just don't like them overall. Like, oh, you can run fast, cool. Hey, Usain Bolt, go ahead. You can be a first-round pick. No, screw that. But I like to pick a Shazier too. I think he's. Go ahead, roll your eyes, Penline. It's the truth. It's very overrated. Ask Darius Hayrow-Bay in the Raiders about it. Or
But if you watch,
he could win in the.
But I think Jeff's point was, if you watch the tape of Shazier, he plays every bit of that 40 time because he's.
I agree. No. I mean like wide receiver, running backs. I especially hated it. And I agree with everything Jeff said. I'm a big fan of Shazier. I thought the Packers were gonna get him. Actually, I was talking with my buddy about it. But no, I really do like the pick. The one pick I do not like, and I think it was Jeff alluded to, some people won't like it, and that's Dre Archer in the 3rd round. Not taking away from the skills. He's of course fast, but he's very talented. He's kind of like a Dexter McCluster, Ace Sanders type guy. I think I saw Mayock describe him as, but I just don't think 3rd round is the spot to get that kind of player. You can wait on those kind of players. First one that comes to mind for me is, of course, because I'm an Oregon fan, DeAnthony Thomas. He's similar skill set. He dropped to the 4th round. So that's the only pick really looking at the Steelers I'm not a big fan of. Martavius Bryant, he's very raw, and we'll see what he turns out to be. But aside from that, I don't really have many complaints. Anybody with me on the Archer pick, or are you guys all in favor of that excitement on the field?
I like the Dre Archer pick. He's a guy that I profiled a lot prior to the draft, especially a few months ago around combine time. Todd Haley needs a guy like this in his offense. He was the guy. Todd Haley was the coach that went out and brought Dexter McCluster into the league, and I think Dre Archer. You look at his 2012 stats, and last year's a little bit off the table because he was injured for part of the season, but some of the numbers he put up in 2012 are literally mind-boggling. And granted, it was at Kent State, college, MAC team, but I really like his athletic ability. I love his speed. I just think he's going to be fun, and he brings something that the Steelers have not had, and that is a guy who every time he's back there on a kick return is going to bring excitement and electricity. Antonio Brown is probably one of the best punt returners in the league, but at this point, he's too valuable. He cannot be returning punts or kickoffs for this team any longer. I think it's a fun pick. 3rd round, there was a lot of ways they could have went, but I think they got good value with him. I think he's going to end up being a fun player, and I think fans are eventually going to really enjoy him.
Well, I have a quick question. I have a quick question on the Dre Archer pick, because I know a lot of people don't like it, and I don't care what you think, Mike, because you're just mad because the Eagles picked a defensive end in the 1st round.
I love their draft. By the way.
No, I'm just kidding. But I guess I do see DeAnthony Thomas and Dexter McCluster. I just kind of wonder what the difference is between Archer and a guy like Tavon Austin. Because Tavon Austin is 5'8", 176, or 173. Dre Archer is 5'7", 176. And I mean, the 40 time shows that Archer's faster. Now we don't care about the 40 time, but again, I mean, there's a lot of people who watched a lot of Kent State games saying, well, he took over games for them. Is it the level of competition? I mean, I don't really see what the big difference is between Tavon Austin and Dre Archer when I look at them.
Tavon Austin, obviously a primary wide receiver, just better hands. Dre Archer is a guy who's going to catch some balls out of the backfield, but he's more of a lateral movement type of runner, where Tavon Austin is a guy that's going to go streaming down the field and be able to make the over the shoulder catches, stuff of that nature. Athletically, no, they're not that much different, but I've sat and watched tape of Dre Archer for the last 24 hours, and he might have been. He's right up there with Wisconsin's Chris Borland, who I think the San Francisco got a big time pick with as my favorite tape that I watched leading up to this draft. He's just fun to watch. I don't really know how else to describe him. There's not really much else that you can say about him other than he's going to be lightning in a bottle.
I guess I still have to digest the pick and figure out exactly how I feel. It's just my question and my concern is what's the defined role, what's the defined position, and sometimes in the third round I like to have a guy that has a little bit more definition. Like you said, Jeff, it's kind of the difference between a guy like Tavon Austin. He's a defined wide receiver, even if you can use him in different areas. Yeah, I'm a little worried about the vision. He likes to run a little too east-west, kind of trusts his speed a little too much. And just, you got to have a good game plan for him, and you got to know going into when you select him what you want to get out of him. And I'm sure the team does, but sometimes you can find those guys in the later rounds. I mean, there's even a kid out of Oklahoma named Roy Finch, who the Patriots got, who I thought was actually pretty similar in terms of that multi-facet, really athletic kid. So third round, it's a little high to take a guy like that. I think that doesn't have that truly defined role.
But don't forget, the Steelers took Chris Rainey in the third round a few years ago. And, if things wouldn't have went sour for him personally, I think Rainey was on his way to becoming a fantastic value for the Steelers. Archer's probably faster. Actually, he is faster than Rainey, and he's more of a developed football player. I just think that you can go back just a few years ago to Rainey and see that the type of player that they're going to be looking for when you think of what role Archer's going to be playing.
No, I mean, I understand. You got to. I mean, the size. You're not going to be an every down kind of workhorse. Obviously, with Archer. I don't know. I don't hate the pick because I love guys. I love versatility. I love guys that can wear multiple hats and create those splash plays, and that's why they made the pick. They brought in so much speed. But, is he a receiver? Only body catches a lot, and he's a fluid route runner, but he body catches too much. Is he a running back? He can run outside the tackles, but inside the tackles, he's really, really shy. So you don't know exactly where he's going to fit and how much you're going to. Some games you might get something big out of him. Sometimes you might not really get anything out of him at all. In the third round, I want that guy that could be that up and down. I'm mixed on it.
One more thing real quick. Archer, telling statistic, at the Combine, he was in the top 10% of running backs with 20 reps of 225. This is a 174-pound guy.
Bam. Just was going to make my point. I have a 400-meter runner who just did an official visit. He's signing with Kent State, actually. And he got to spend a good part of the day with Dree, believe it or not, and because he's been working out with the track and field team over there. And two things that Brad brought up was, one, the guy is maybe 5'7", but he is stacked. I mean, the kid is just a ball of muscle. And, I know we don't talk a lot about 40 times being all that important, but the guy is a sub 4.2 guy. I mean, that is legitimate speed. That is speed that's like Deion Sanders type of speed. The point was made, and I'm sorry, I don't know if it was Jeff that was talking about being a little bit too lateral. That is something that I think is a little bit of a concern. Hopefully he's a kid who's going to understand that if he's going to use that 40 times speed, he's going to have to get downfield. He's going to have to make it work in that way. And I also agree, he's going to probably be more of a return man for the Steelers early. And I think Jeff made the point about we got to get Antonio Brown out of the punt returning role. I mean, there's no doubt about it. That was one of the things that I wanted to bring up earlier. And it's a great point. You don't want your franchise receiver that at least you're paying franchise money to back there returning punts if you can bring a guy in. And last thing, thank God we don't have to worry about watching Phillips Jones return kicks anymore, because it's, I think, going to be I could be an upgrade back there, I'm afraid. So it's going to be nice to see a guy who can actually take it to the house and touches the ball back there returning kicks.
Hey, just put one of your track guys back there. As long as they can run fast, they can play football, so they'll be fine. But kickoff returns the way the league is. So punt returns, yeah. Third round pick, not a big fan of it. We are getting to that point where we have to shut things down for the day. Jeff, Alex, we do a thing here we call the final word, where we just take a little 30 seconds, sometimes minutes, sometimes however long we want, rant, and we kind of end the show on that. So, John, you look like you're ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and throw you in the fire.
All right, well, I guess I'll just wrap up, the topics with the draft. I mean, I really like the first 4 picks, and I really like the 9,000-pound nose tackle they got from Tennessee late in the late in the draft. I think that that was a big concern of mine. They brought in Shazier. They're going to bring in Tuitt, a guy who I think looks a lot like at least from what I saw, he seems like kind of an Aaron Smith type player, and that's something that they need. I mean, they needed that front seven to get shored up, and when they brought in the nose tackle, they're basically saying, well, we're going to make teams one-dimensional again, and even if it's a passing league, they're going to know that they're going to have to pass, and they're going to have two very athletic inside linebackers. I like the Bryant pick. I thought that as long as he doesn't get arrested, I think he'll be great for them. And that's said somewhat jokingly, but he does have a history of I saw some comparisons to Chris Henry, which might be pretty accurate. But they finally got Ben a big wide receiver as long as he can stay out of trouble. The only thing that I am concerned about, other than actually developing these guys, because as great as these picks have been over the years, they haven't really developed into anything. The field. You know what? Everybody wants Bob Nutting to pony up money, and I'm one of those guys too. I want him to spend a little bit more, but you know what? It's time for the Rooneys to pony up as well. It's time to get a new field. It's time to get, whether you want to put in field turf or resod the whole thing, I don't care. But it's time to get an actual field that's not going to get tracked all over for college and high school football games. And it's time to put up the money, and to if you're going to get these guys with all this speed, you better put them on a surface that they can actually use that speed and not slide all over the place in the middle of the season.
All right, Gar, you good?
I am good. First off, before I give my final word, Mike, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here with PSN. I mean, just being here today working with you four guys, I mean, you guys are off the chain, knowledgeable. It's such an awesome thing to be able to do this, and I want to wish you good luck on your trip to Oregon before I say anything else. It's been a blast, and I'm looking forward to working with the four of you moving forward. My parents moved to Pittsburgh in 1969 and have been season ticket holders, and I now get to be a season ticket holder myself for the Steelers since 1969. That was a pretty big year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A man by the name of Bill Nunn Jr. Joined the Pittsburgh Steelers scouting staff, and I think it would be remiss not to, with so much going on with the draft. Bill Nunn passed away on Tuesday. He was probably the most underrated guy in terms of building the Steelers into the dynasty that they became in the 1970s. I mean, the laundry list of historically black college players that were brought in under Bill Nunn, Donnie Shell, Mel Blount, L.C. Greenwood, I mean, the list goes on and on. John Stallworth. I mean, what an amazing job that he did. And he played a role in the Steelers draft well into the recent years. And he was a remarkable man. He had so many great stories, and he was a sports journalist like us working for the Pittsburgh Courier way back in the day. It's a big loss, and I think anyone who is a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, whether you're 7 or 70, you should know about Bill Nunn, because Steelers Nation, as we know it today, probably isn't pounding their chest talking about winning 7 Super Bowls if it wasn't for Bill Nunn Jr.
All right, and real quick, we forgot to grade the draft real quick. So at the end of it, we're gonna go through. Oh well, actually, right now, everybody just say your draft thing to break up the this. I'm giving the Steelers a B+. Penline.
I'll give them a B+.
Jeff.
B- on the draft, B+ after the undrafted free agents.
Gar.
Very solid B.
And Alex.
Agree with Gar. I'll give him a B.
All right, and I'll go with my final word real quick, and then we'll pass it to you two. And my favorite draft of the entire NFL draft was the Kansas City Chiefs. I give them a solid A, close to A+. Dee Ford in the first round, love it. Phillip Gaines, cornerback out of Rice, second round, love it. Of course, Anthony Thomas, I'm going to love that. That's an upgrade over Dexter McCluster. And most importantly, the best quarterback in the draft went to the Chiefs in the 5th round, and that is Aaron Murray. Cannot wait for a few years when Aaron Murray is starring in Nike commercials, Adidas commercials, winning Super Bowls while Johnny Manziel is chauffeuring him around the city because that guy's the biggest bust there is. No better place for him to be than Cleveland, except maybe Dallas. Johnny Manziel, you suck. All right. Jeff, we'll pass it to you.
First off, Gar, absolutely. Thank you very much for the kind words in general. But Bill Nunn, absolutely, 100%, one of the biggest influences in Pittsburgh Steelers history, and a guy who brought countless players through the tough times that were coming into the NFL in the late 60s, early 70s. My final word, like I mentioned, undrafted free agents. I think the Steelers really hit some out of the park here. Howard Jones, linebacker at a little Shepherd University. This guy is going to remind everybody of James Harrison. He's just he's a motor. He's going to be fantastic, fun guy to watch. Hopefully he makes the roster out of camp. Because I do not see him clearing the rest of the teams if they try to put him on the practice squad. Josh Morrow, a huge defensive end out of Stanford. Ethan Hemmer, a huge defensive end out of Wisconsin. And Will Simmons, a guard out of East Carolina, who I think will have absolutely no problem sticking with the team, similar to Craig Urbick a few years ago. Steelers, I think, they do pretty well every year, at least getting one of these guys to stick on their roster. I think there's going to be a few of them that do it this year. And my final word is one of my favorite players in this draft who did not get drafted, ended up with the Chicago Bears as an undrafted free agent, quarterback Jordan Lynch, Northern Illinois, a guy who was in the Heisman talk all the way down to probably the last 4 weeks of the season. Isn't going to be a quarterback in the NFL, maybe a running back, maybe a fullback, maybe a tight end, but I guarantee you Jordan Lynch at least makes a roster spot and ends up playing for a good few years in the NFL.
All right, and Alex, you finish us off.
I'll just go through the draft, other picks real quickly. I love the Tua pick. Defense end was the biggest need on this team. A guy that's just 20 years old, will be 21 by training camp, so he's still growing. A hernia dogged him last year. I see a lot of Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt. Bryant, he's raw. I compare him to Stephen Hill. Ran just, go routes and post routes at Clemson. 61 career catches, but you love the triangle numbers. Just under 6'4", ran a 4.42 at the combine. Shows that on tape. He's a long strider, a little more athletic than you expect from that position. Shaq Richardson from Arizona, not a huge fan of it. He has length, but a little not a fundamentally sound tackler. Maturity issues. Got kicked off of UCLA. That's why he's at Arizona. Wesley Johnson from Vanderbilt, technician, did well against Clowney, but limited athlete. I think his frame's maxed out, his ability's maxed out, so I think he's a swingman at best. McCullers, I'm not really a big fan of. 6'7", he's a house. He gets out leverage. He's got a poor first step. There's weight issues too. He was 420 pounds in high school, 377 for his junior year at Tennessee. And then Rob Blanchflower. An interesting guy who got beat up his senior year at UMass. Hopefully he's not David Paulson. But and Gar, great final word about Bill Nunn. I could not agree more. There's one person you've got to learn about for that dynasty. It's Chuck Noll, and it's Bill Nunn.
All right. And that'll wrap up the show for this week. I'd like to thank Alex Kazor from SteelersDepot.com for coming on and joining us, breaking down the draft. Thank you, Alex. And Jeff, pleasure having you on, giving your Steelers knowledge as well. Looking forward to having you work the primary beat this year for Pittsburgh Sporting News. So thank you guys for coming on. We appreciate it. And for Gar and John, it's just been another Sunday. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you next week. Everybody enjoy the action tonight with the Penguins and the Rangers at Madison Square Garden, the self-proclaimed most famous arena in the world. And also the Pirates on primetime against the St. Louis Cardinals in PNC Park. It'll be kind of cool watching them on ESPN in front of everybody if you're into that kind of thing. So everybody have a great week. Enjoy your Mother's Day, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Thank you.